Hello, hi, welcome everyone. Good afternoon. We're going to start our events really soon. So thank you for those who dialed in earlier at 4:15. And welcome once again. We're going to talk about a very interesting topic today, anything as a service. So for those familiar faces in the crowd, we are part of the Tcube community, where Tcube is a hybrid multi-use space by the Singapore Tourism Board that was developed as a platform to help various stakeholders in the tourism industry move towards digital transformation. So we're really looking forward to explore and learn together with all of you. And today's topic is on how anything as a service can transform our tourism and hospitality industry. Because we know that everywhere we looked, industries are being reinvented and changing the way of what we thought of as the usual products. Many of it are moving into services. And one question when we drove this conversation to community is how this might mean for tourism, which is one of the world's largest service industry. So what does anything as a service mean? In today's session, there's a few key takeaways that we hope to explore with you guys alongside with our invited speakers. One of it definitely is to understand anything as a service, especially its importance in our post-pandemic era. More importantly, how is it helping us move forward in the next couple of years or even decade? We will also be asking the speakers how anything as a service has changed their way of doing business, or even to bring about a new travel experience. We would be able to speak with them. We will have industry partners together with application owners to get them to share a little bit about what was their decision-making process of why they decided to move into this, what were some of their user experiences, feedbacks, how they managed to kickstart this integration, and also hopefully we discover and give all of you new ways of collaborating and integrating this technology. So in fact, I think today we're also benefiting from anything as a service, right? By video conferencing as a service. Today's session is hosted on the cloud. And this is also a way of how things have been changing, how we are defining or looking at content delivery as well. Just a few examples that I wanted to share as well to kickstart. The Singapore Tourism Accelerator also has startups that looked into anything as a service, two of which I felt was really very interesting, and us together with STB wanted to share a little bit more. One of them is BeLive, where they use technology solution to build live streaming as a service. So BeLive, it's actually a local company where they employ advanced AI and machine learning to revolutionize the way people connect online and help empower businesses with data insights such as live sentiment analysis in order to make better business decisions. Instio as well, they offer platform as a service. It's an integrated digital solution for managing operations and guest experiences for hospitality companies. So very much interesting for us to explore, from guest services, front house, even housekeeping. The platform also keeps track on progress and alerts the staff when things are needed. So there's a lot of changes and movement and digital transformation happening. And I think one thing that probably attracted all of you to sign up and dial in today is that, we sometimes want to hear about new ways of doing things and hear it not just from a one-sided point of view of how great this technology is, but from actual application owners and industry partners that have piloted or worked on this, which is why our speakers are really crucially important today. There'll be also live Q&A as well, where all of you can also pop in questions in the Q&A that we will take. Right, so I'll invite them up really soon. But before that, I think we just want to also understand today's crowd. Since it's webinar style, I can't see you guys. Let's launch a poll to understand, where are all of you at in your organization when it comes to launching or piloting or even thinking about anything as a service. So two quick questions. One is a single choice. And then one of it is, of course, a multiple choice. The first one being, has your organization started any attempt into anything as a service? And specifically, what stages of implementation? Has it been successful? No, it's not successful, or you've yet to try. The second question, it's a multiple choice one, where we want to know what was attractive, or what is that potential or possibility that you see. As I mentioned, at Tcube, we want to learn together and hear from each other and grow as a community. So do share your honest thoughts and opinions, and we will also pop these questions to the speakers later, who will be able to give us a bit more insight to answer all these questions. Yeah. Has everyone responded? I think a few of you are still streaming in. Hi, welcome. All right. So I think quick one, just 2 questions, and I think we can wrap it up. Yeah. Can we show the results? And with that also, can we have the panelists switch on their videos? I'll invite them really soon enough as well, right after the poll. Okay. Let's see the results. Okay, majority have not tried. But there's some, 20%, there's 2 successful cases. I'd love to hear that as well. And in terms of the potential advantages, or what is attractive about anything as a service, which is what probably drew everyone in to today's session. It's a mixed cost savings, of course, in a post-pandemic era, creating new business value, resourcing, and also promoting, of course, better customer satisfaction. Okay, interesting. Keep the questions coming, questions, comments, feedback as we go. The Q&A is live as well. I think that's also the benefit of pushing it on a digital content sharing angle as well. So we'll walk through with our speakers. I'll bear in mind these are things that keeps you guys attracted about anything as a service, and we definitely can hear from our speakers more later. So introducing today's speakers. So we are super honored to have on board with us today, Craig, Simin, and Shao. So starting from Shao is the founder. He's the founder of Fuyo. He's a tech entrepreneur and a co-founder of Fuyo, which is a tech consulting company based in Singapore. What is also very interesting is the pilot project that they have been working on that's related to anything as a service, is that they worked with Sentosa Development Corporation to innovate on potentials and possibilities of anything as a service implemented in attractions. So we'll hear definitely more from him later. And we have Simin, who's the general manager of Hotel Royal at Queens. So she, together with Craig, who's the account director for Info HMS, they have been piloting this very exciting project within the hotel as well, and something that I heard from Simin as well, that they intend to scale and move to their other properties as well. So I'll leave them to introduce more about their projects and have them pinned with us today. So yeah, hi, everyone want to say hi? Shao, do you want to say hi?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, this is Shao from Fuyo. Nice to meet you, everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, and Craig as well.
Good afternoon, everybody. Looking forward to the panel today.
Simin.
Hi.
Thank you. So I think first and foremost, so we have an industry pairing, which was quite interesting. That was also one of the outcomes that, one of the objectives that we want from today's session, to hear it not just from, a solutions partner, but also hear it from the tourism partner as well, like why certain initiatives were done, why certain decisions were made in order to pursue that particular solution, right? So maybe starting with, Simin, yourself, and of course your partner Craig at Info at HMS first, on what was the project. I of course know from the conversation that we had, but maybe share with us, with the audience today, what was that project about, right? Just give us a little brief summary of this case study.
Well, I'm the user, so I'll start off today's conversation, and Craig can supplement, on the project later on. So Just to give some backdrop, we are Hotel Royal at Queens is a 236 mid-tier hotel. So we are not huge like some of the international properties in Singapore, but yet we are slightly bigger than your backpacker hotels or your hostels. And our hotel is actually part of a bigger group called the Hotel Royal Group that manages 7 properties across Singapore, Malaysia, and Thailand. So in our search for the right solution partners, we were also looking at how they can help us grow within the organization. Obviously, our property was the pilot project, and we have now gone into slightly more than a year with the Info HMS cloud solution.
So do you want to just walk us a little bit through of what is this pilot about?
Sure. I think to start off, maybe give you an understanding of our digitalization journey, just a short, brief one. I saw in many of the polls that our, the other friends and industry players in this webinar today are a bit hesitant to take the first step. And I think we were in the same shoes a year ago until Info managed to convince us, obviously. But I think the catalyst was really the pandemic, and when it really struck us hard in 2020 and we witnessed a dramatic decrease in tourist numbers. We were certainly faced in a dilemma, and we had what seemed to us as many unsurmountable challenges, be it with the safe management measures or border closures. But ironically, that misfortunate event was also an opportunity for us. Our team had some free time to return to the drawing block to really identify what are some of these major gaps that we can plug with either new technologies or whether there are opportunities and travel trends that we can tap on in the near future. And that was also coincidentally where Info came into the picture. We shared with them our problem statements, which were, if I were to summarize the 3 main problem statements, the first was the inability to adopt a hybrid work format due to lack of access to live hotel statistics, especially from our owner's perspective. The second issue that we have was the need to increase efficiency and also reduce manual reporting and updates. And the third is definitely manpower limitations, primarily contributed by the Malaysia's Movement Control Order, or what we fondly call MCO. So like I said, Info HMS came to us at a very opportunistic time. We kickstarted these conversations by firstly identifying these problem statements and seeing how their solution can actually answer to our needs. This process was definitely not easy. I recall months of conversation together with deep dives. We also involved other solution providers, so it wasn't a one-sided opinion, as well as conversations with our internal or in-house IT consultants. And thereafter, we managed to convince not just the owners and management, but also our internal staff to take this leap of faith with us and try on a new system. So where are we at right now? Since adopting Info HMS, we've also signed up to 2 other cloud solutions, which are a digital concierge app as well as an AI chatbot. So that's where we are at a very early stage of our digitalization journey, I would say.
Thank you, Samin. I think all of us in all of the partners here as well are also facing different stages. So I think to summarize, I think your start for your organization was very much problem driven, right? Like the pandemic hit and then everyone was scrambling, and you had all these 3 problem statements that was very clear. So for Craig, what was of interest is that, so what solutions did you develop, or, they went to the drawing board, and what was something that, your team at Info HMS came up with?
Yeah, look, I mean, Simon's right. It's the approach that Hotel Royal had was very much they saw their problem, which was great. Lisa, Seamin and I and her team have had many conversations across the past 2 years about what we can provide in that space. She's been very patient with us with those conversations. And look, it's always been about what can cloud solutions bring to the hospitality game? Ximin had a legacy desktop platform, which meant the team are managing servers on site to start off with. Hoteliers shouldn't be IT people. They shouldn't be IT managers. Hoteliers are there to manage their guests. They're there to manage an experience for the people that are traveling into Singapore and into Malaysia as well, to their Malaysian and their Thailand hotels. And they shouldn't have to be managing servers. So seeing that, to me, is one of the big steps about moving to the cloud. You place a solution into the cloud within 4HMS. We're taking all that responsibility for the cloud, and it's secure. The security levels that we can provide as well into those cloud solutions is first class. We partner with some of the world's largest cloud vendors like Amazon, AWS, for example. So we have the latest technology that we can provide to a hotel in Singapore. We can provide that. We can provide that to any hotel across Asia Pacific and across the globe. And again, the post-pandemic travel, mid-pandemic travel in Ximin's case, it changed dramatically. How the hotels were, some of the hotels were closed, some hotels were operating as quarantine stations for travelers coming in and out of country. The cloud solutions are so very versatile in being able to keep up with technology. Some of the things that we did, for example, that benefited some of the hotels across the region was when we discovered that hotels were starting to check guests back in again. Hotels were saying to us, we need a day or 2 days between the guest checking out and the next guest checking in to really service and clean that room, to give a reassurance and that customer service back to the guest. So very quickly we developed a solution where a guest checked out, we could place the room as out of service 2 days automatically, and so the staff didn't have to do that. And again, those efficiencies, and Ximin mentioned those efficiencies that we bring to the software solutions. Flexibility in how different hotels operate. No two hotels operate exactly the same. We know that, and we've had conversations with all of our, all of the prospective stakeholders at Hotel Royal, and they told us exactly what they needed in a solution. We were able to build a flexible platform, and one of the things that we can do is the hotel chooses where the fields go on the screen, for example. It's like, a good example is buying a new car. You can tell the dealer, I want the light switch over there, I want the stereo just there, and we can do that. So all of those key features in the platform, we allowed the team at the hotel to lay the platform out the way their processes work to the hotel already. The hotel didn't have to fit the software into their business. I think that's it's a key benefit to what we brought to the solution. But again, Ximin's right. Manpower. Hopefully, what we've delivered has given some efficiencies at the hotel. All of that reporting that we can provide within the system. It's easily accessible, and that hybrid format. If the team are at home, if the team are traveling, if the team are in the hotel, they've always got access to the platform. They don't have to dial in. They don't have to think, oh, do I have to go into the office to get to my software system? It's open. It's in Chrome. It's in Safari, and wherever you've got internet connection, you can see a hotel.
That's incredible. I'm hearing things like, of course, as technologists or a solutions provider, Craig, you mentioned, and I really love that hoteliers in this particular case study should be hoteliers, right, and leave the technologists and all the back end work with solution partners like you guys, and Ximin's team can focus on the whole value creation for their business as well, right? We would definitely deep dive into this just in a short while in understanding how post the case study or during the case study how it helped Ximin's team change the way they do businesses, and also getting some of the feedback from the ground as well. So maybe turning over to, from hotels to attractions, where Xiao, your solutions come in with a very interesting case study with Sentosa, where this pilot actually started before pandemic, as I understood, right, Xiao? So it is something that, SDC has always been championing and trying to make it work, trying to do adoption for anything as a service for the sector, especially on attractions. So can you share a little bit more about that pilot project that you've worked on with Sentosa Development?
Sure. Yeah. So I think Sentosa is very pioneering in this digitalization for the we call attraction or destination perspective. So they actually have the vision called Smart Sentosa back in 2016 or 2018. It's very, very early. Yeah. And then the major focus is to really finding out a way to help visitors to create a more seamless and connected and integrated guest experience and to generate the optimal business outcome. And then SDC has been embracing the digitalization smart tourism initiative and since like pre-COVID actually. So pre-COVID, they have identified that there are a lot of ways that they can improve in terms of, for instance, improving the wayfinding, improving the personalization and awareness of content recommendation. And also like, for instance, sometimes there will be like queue out there where we can also do some optimization on informing the tourists, etc. And then from the transition phase, they are also exploring different demographics. For instance, the travelers from China, they actually use a super app called WeChat, which is very different from the traditional websites or mobile apps. And then they try to build like WeChat mini programs and implementing even more cutting edge solutions like AR and augmented reality, and then adding on more initiative to improve the visitor experiences and streamline the operation. And basically for COVID, it also accelerate the whole digitalization needs. And then SDC tried to add on more technologies, for instance, AI and even other evolving solutions to improve the efficiency of the operation, as well as to improve the overall guest experience for the travelers. So we are very honored to be part of the whole, we call Smart Sentosa, like a pilot, and then some of our solutions, for instance, our smart navigation and smart itinerary planners and AR solutions has been actually implemented in the pilot stage, as well as in the actual production. Yeah, and then I think then SDC actually tried to work with the more integrated kind of information service hub. For instance, there will be TIH from SDB, where they also work very closely with to promote, to actually extract the information or the promotions to these public repos or public data sets. Yeah, so I think in summary, like we are very honored to be part of the journey to work out the digitalization for the tourism industry, especially on the attraction and destination perspective. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you, Shao, for the brief introduction about what that project that you had with STC was about. I think one thing that I hear in commonality from both of the solutions partner is that how it promotes efficiency and of course try as much as possible bring about new business value. Maybe then from coming back to users' point of view, Simin, how did that change, right, ever since the whole shift into adopting solutions from Craig's team? How did that change your way of doing business? Of course, we heard about the hybrid workforce, efficiency and manpower limitations. These were the broad problem statements that you had. But in actual day-to-day operations, how did you feel anything as a service solutions helped change the way of your team doing business?
Right. I think the departments, and we are talking about operations, right? So this is very specific to the hotel industry, of course. I think in terms of departments, if we break it down to the three departments, which is reservations, front office as well as housekeeping. Those are the departments that face the most significant changes in terms of their work processes. So take, for example, with the hotel management system, guests are able to pre-register online before arriving at the hotel, and that would really reduce the waiting time at reception, right? Of course, I do have to highlight that the success of pre-registration really depends on how much you push your guests to use the function. And I could see perhaps at the height of pandemic, the utilization rate is higher, but at the end of the day, I do have to agree that guests still like customer service and to have that one-on-one interaction with our guests at some point. However, with post-pandemic and experiencing more discerning guests, as a hotel, we also want to give options, right? So having options is definitely a perk, and also a marketing tool for many of the hotels. So that's one. In terms of group arrivals or VIP arrivals, our staff do not have to be constrained to the desk as well. They are able to provide the check-in services, be it in the guest rooms or in a function room, let's say. And in the past, with a legacy system, it's very difficult to do that. You have to set up, a computer with a CPU, but now you can do that simply with a device and have all the key cards all pre-registered. So that is the greatest perks for a front office department. In terms of housekeeping, all our staff now carry a mobile device, and it has a mobile app, a housekeeping mobile app that allows them to receive their room allocation, which we used to do it on clipboards, but right now they do it with their mobile devices, and able to update the room statuses or highlight any room anomalies along the way. Rather than having to pick up the phone and call the housekeeping coordinator to inform them of the statuses. And in this reporting function, it also provides photo images as well. So you can actually show the real condition of the rooms and allow the supervisors or other departments to intervene in a very timely basis without any delays. And lastly, in terms of reservations, with the channel management application, now are able to receive reservations seamlessly together with our search, with our booking engines. And that reduces about 70% of manual reporting and manual keying. So these are all backed by data. And since we have lost about 20% of our workforce during COVID and only recovered about 10%, we managed to do the same amount of task with the help of technology, of course.
So, Simin, what you're saying is that, of course, there were feedback from your staff as well, in this whole transformation. I think we had this short call, with all these three pillars, right, from your front of house to even your housekeeping. How do you manage to convince all the folks, right, in your organization that this is how you're going to do it? All the housekeeping team would have devices with them, right? It is changing their usual model of like, oh yeah, I just do a manual key in, right? Because that's more comfortable as compared to relearning a whole system. So how do you convince anything from, your management team, your board, all the way to the actual ground team to change this?
So I think I previously said how we turned a misfortune into an opportunity, and I think that really worked for us in terms of implementing change. I think it was easy to convince the management of the need to adopt technology. It was the other driver that really allowed us to do that was also the fact that the Singapore Tourism Board provided a financial grant for projects that would improve productivity and efficiency, and that sort of helped us mitigate, the risk that we were facing at that point. I think the hardest was in this entire process was actually the internal stakeholders buy-in, right? I think it is quite common that the hospitality industry have many senior workers who pardon if I'm stereotyping, but sometimes it takes a bit longer for them to adapt to new technologies or even something new. So the fact that we took a 1 year long process from the initial talks to the implementation, a lot of time was actually attributed to convincing our internal stakeholders of the need for change. And that included providing them with a lot of case studies of our hotels, whether it's in Singapore or whether it's in other markets, of how they do it. Perpetually having these conversations and focus groups right down to understanding what are the cause of their fears, and really talk them through this process. Looking back, I don't think we will have the luxury of time right now to carry out the same. However, I think it is also important to put it in layman terms. So what we did during the transformation was to identify champions or tech champions within the teams, so that they will they are able to approach their peers instead of a head of department or a solution provider to get insights or to get around the system. Yeah.
Maybe then, I'm surprised it took 1 year, and I think that's also a call for concern, right? Because 1 year was also because it was during the pandemic. So maybe asking our two solutions provider then, how do you think, I'm sure both Fuyo and Info, both of you have spoken with so many owners in businesses in trying to get them to shift and transform things that are traditional, things that do not work, or helping them look at new ways of creating business values. So what were some of the concerns that you hear from the ground? Or maybe to put it in a more positive light, how did you, Fuyo and Info, interest potential clients on how anything as a service is the way to go, cloud is the way to go, technology is the way to go for them? So how do you convince them? Also, what were some of the interesting conversations that have taken, or what were some of the concerns that you hear them mention that stopped them from adopting anything as a service? Anyone first? Craig, would you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll take that. Look, Seamin answered most of those questions already. Actually, wrapped up, which is fantastic. Look, from our perspective, it's a story. We've implemented these software solutions at so many other hotels, and we were in the fortunate space, obviously, going through the same process, across the region, whether that was in Singapore or Thailand or Malaysia or New Zealand. And we were getting the same stories from the same hotels. I have a hotel client in Auckland, for example, who, being an airport hotel, they have check-ins at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, but they have departures at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. And for them to service those rooms and to make sure that those rooms were back again from one flight departing to the next flight arriving, and they needed to turn those rooms around. And it was the conversation we were having, I think, with Seamin and the team from that hotel and other hotels that really sort of helped her to sell it to her stakeholders, to get them interested into why cloud is the way to go. Legacy platforms, they don't have these features. Desktop solutions, they lack those features. The perfect example is the mobile housekeeping solution. And again, coming back to a comment about demographic of staff, how do you get those staff that you've had in your hotel for 20 years, and all hotels have those staff, to adopt to a new piece of technology? It's the first time I gave my mother an iPhone. How did I get my mother to buy into using an iPhone? Well, when she figured out it was quite easy to use, and again, adoption rates are poor when the technology is difficult to use. So we've designed the platform that I hope is very intuitive. It's very simple to use, whilst offering a lot of powerful tools behind it. And it was really showing on a one-to-one basis the team how these platforms work, what these platforms look like, and what other hotels have done with the platforms. Again, the pre-check-in, getting your guests to use technology. How do you, and Seamin again has hit that nail on the head there. Getting the guest to fill out their own information. One, it's accurate. They spell their own names right. They spell their addresses right. So by the time they get to the hotel, your staff aren't reading a piece of paper and trying to decipher what's on that piece of paper to try and decipher what the actual address of that guest is. and it's all been pre-done for you. But again, guests we find now actually quite like doing that. They're getting used to doing that at so many other hotels. We introduced it several years ago, and it's something that has been picked up on all of our clients. So trying to convince the stakeholders, and it really is the key stakeholders: who's paying the bill? Why should that person put their hand in their pocket, pull their checkbook out, and invest in a solution? Property management systems aren't always considered return on investment. They're a key feature a hotel needs, but not necessarily a really strong return on investment. But we've seen returns on investment with property management systems in the right hotels who are adopting the solutions that they're taking on. So the mobile housekeeping drastically reduces costs of housekeeping. Mobile check-in drastically reduces the need for 3 people at front desk. Siemens already said they've lost staff. And we've seen that across all of our client base, where hotels have spent that time on check-in, perhaps upselling that guest to the next room type. And again, we've got technology that can help them with that. Or simply, do you want to book a restaurant table tonight? Or let me show you where the spa is. Or telling them something about the hotel rather than spending that time on the boring stuff of checking the guest in. And again, Siemens right, guests do like that little bit of human touch. We can provide that technology so somebody can walk in off the street and never see a front desk person. But there's always going to be those hotel guests that always want that little bit of human interaction. And again, we provide that technology, and the hotels can then decide how they adopt the technology.
I really love that, Greg. Thank you so much. And I think you rightfully mentioned, right? It's a bit of and I love the example of how technology needs to be intuitive, and it becomes less scary and easier to convince internal stakeholders.
Very much so. Yes.
Right. And at the same time, as long as we can justify business value, in this case, you're saying that, it is sometimes ROI. It's not just, a business feature anymore, but some of these solutions, when we put it into context or when it fills or when it solves certain problems, it's actually giving ROI back to the organization in this sector. Xiao, then what about attractions, right? I think the hotel side, a lot of it is very clear during the pandemic, with all these safe management measures and the dip in, we've heard all the problems, and the tech solutions was solving it directly. But attractions, was it also similar? Or did yourself and SDC, chance upon different problem statements that anything as a service was trying to solve?
I think for attractions or destinations, the whole process may be even more tedious, because normally they are huge organizations with a lot of departments, and then sometimes really setting up the very the top-down kind of approach on what kind of goal that they want to achieve is super important. And then they look into different factors. First, they may have a central system that they will be really working very closely with their internal team, and then they also want cost-efficient solutions or flexible solutions that can be plugged in and integrated with their main and core systems. And then this is where XaaS or SaaS solutions play a very important role, because you cannot expect a solution to be developed all from scratch within a very short period of time, and then and always customized solutions. So I think the reason why certain solutions ready to have SaaS solutions are very important is very valid for all these organizations to make decisions, including cost effectiveness, the operational efficiency, and flexibility and scalability, as well as the speed of deployment, and as well as the capability to integrate with their existing systems. So these are super important factors that they need to take in when taking into the SaaS or XaaS solutions. However, they will also have other concerns regarding, for instance, limited customization, because for these big players, they also want to have as many customization as possible in some way. And also they also have very strict kind of data security and downtime and performance requirements, as well as as well as other concerns that they have to be addressed all across different departments. So to make a SaaS solution that works for their organization, and at the same time to be able to do customization based on certain requirements and be able to really serve their needs in a very like timely and also professional level. These are something that has to be in place before they can really take in the SaaS solutions. So I think that's actually quite similar to the hospitality sector, just that for the attraction sectors, maybe because they have even more departments maybe, and then they will actually go along a longer process sometimes. But luckily, like in Singapore, the attractions are very pioneeringly looking. They look in the very long term. And then actually they plan things way ahead of other destinations and attractions, where I think that's why some of the attractions are so ahead of the global competition, even after the pandemic. Yeah. Yes.
Thank you, Shao. I'm gonna pause our questions for a while and ask the audience. Since we're hearing, this were some of the hurdles or misconception or barriers, right, that's stopping you guys, or problems that both three of you face. I just want to turn our question to the audience and ask them this as well. What were some of your biggest hurdles and misconceptions that you're facing as implementing SaaS? So I think most of you, the majority said, you have not started your journey into moving into SaaS, right, or adopting XaaS solutions. So just a quick one. It's multiple choice, so you can pick a few. It also covers some of the things that Simin and Craig also shared, right, as they were going through. Is it coming up with the plan, or the problem statements, or is it cost, or is it domain related expertise as well, issues that you may face? So let's just take a moment to answer this before we flash the questions, before we flash the answers. Okay, just 10 seconds more. And just a reminder as well, there's a Q&A tab that's live. Please, if you think of anything, or is it something that the speakers have mentioned that you want to ask, please drop them into the Q&A chat, and we'll get to the questions really soon. Okay, I think we can flash the answers. So let's have a look. All right. So three main, I think the three top ones would be cost of adoption. So Craig and Shao, I don't know if this is the usual feedback, or as you try to talk to potential clients, is it cost of adoption? Is it integration and security concerns? And also the other one, it's kickstarting a proposal, right? Whether or not what proposal to start, or what are the, sometimes it's you don't know what you don't know, right? You don't know where to begin if it's this ambiguous problem statement. So how do we begin? Okay, anyone would like to take on this question, the questions from the community on integration related issues, right? Because I guess people are also trying to understand, if I adopt anything as a service, what is the impact? And all three of you have run the pilots from all these case studies. Maybe through your experiences, what was the impact on costs, on security, on integration, as these are also raised by the audience. So anyone want to start and share? Yes, Simin.
Yeah, maybe I'll take the question first because you let the amateur do it and then the professional will add on to that. So the concerns, I think that on the poll are all extremely valid. In fact, those are all the concerns that we had. And I think it was really the process of eliminating them one by one, right? And some of these concerns still persist. But what I would like to encourage is it's never really looking at making drastic changes at one time, because I think that's too much for us to stomach, especially if you do not have the resources to do that. Coming from an experience from us, which is an SME, I think we were hesitant to take that plunge as well. And so our strategy is really to go with a granular sort of strategy, where we start with the core product, which is the property management system, and how we can build on to it, like simply like small breaks, right? But all these little changes will hopefully give incremental sort of value to the organization and how we work. So as we were talking about cost, I think cost is partially mitigated by some of the financial grants that the Singapore Tourism Board extends, but also looking not just at the short term, but also looking at the mid and long term. Craig rightfully mentioned about ROI, and I agree from our organization standpoint, we didn't look at ROI as a revenue generating model. We looked at it from a productivity and efficiency perspective, you know, in terms of manpower or how much man hours can be saved from adopting this system. So for a lot of business owners, that may be the perspective that you take, rather than looking purely at, you know, the profit and cost, which is very common, very common for us to look at. You know, that is what our KPIs are benchmarked on against. Yeah. And in terms of integration, I think it also comes with experience as well. In our first project with Infor, I think we overlooked, you know, many integration, and that is also why I am personally pleased that we chose a provider that has quite substantial market share and experience in this facet, because they were the ones that really identified, you know, what are the issues that we need to resolve and what are the systems that they have already integrated with that really help us, you know, go through this entire process. And I am sure as our organization is going through our second phase of automation with self check-in kiosks later part of this year, we are now more familiarized with this landscape and able to make, I would say, and hopefully shorter term decisions and faster turnarounds. Yeah. So that's my take.
Yeah, so I'm hearing it's about experimenting, right? Especially, I think it also echoes what Craig was mentioning. Leave the techie bits to the experts, and then Simin, your team can focus on the whole value creation bits as well. And I really like how, you know, as an SME, and I'm sure a lot of our audience also are facing the issue: how do I share this cost, right? With my stakeholders or my management, to have this like go ahead on this project. Yeah, Craig, you wanted to add on?
Oh, look, absolutely. Integration, security, costs, absolute valid discussions to have. Cost is always going to be in anything any hotel does. You know, hotels operate on such tiny margins in today's society. We're very conscious of cost. Siemens, again, hit the nail on the head. It's efficiencies. It's what's it bringing to the hotel. We have a client elsewhere in Singapore, Fraser's Hospitality, and they've got hotels and apartments dotted all around the world. They had to do the time motion study on one of their hotels here in Sydney about check-in. Figured out they were saving so many seconds per day of check-in. Actually said, well, if we add up all these seconds, that adds up to quite a lot of hours through the week, and suddenly there's a cost factor of the hourly rate of somebody on front desk, and they were actually managed to re-roster their staff better, or they didn't reduce the staff, they just put that staff to work somewhere else in the business to make that person more productive. Again, it's cementing exactly what Seaman said. Look, integration security, I can give you thousands of examples of security comments. On-premise software systems are more prone to attacks than cloud-based systems today. We have an unnamed client that is now an Infor client in the Middle East. They were discussing what they should be installing Infor. they were running a legacy platform, and all of a sudden one of their staff clicked on the wrong link on an email and it infected their whole network, took their server out. They had one of those ransomware, if you don't pay us $1 gazillion, we'll shut your servers down. Again, we employ some fantastic security. We're not infallible, but we are providing the latest technology on security. And we're benefiting from our partner Amazon with that security, to be able to deliver a hotel in Singapore, a hotel in Thailand, a hotel in Auckland, that highest level of security we can. And we constantly updating those security patches and making sure we're up to date. And then you talk about credit card security. Again, one of the big things with hotels today is, again, it relates to the guest. Is my credit card being securely stored at the hotel? What is that hotel doing with my credit card? We work with partners globally like Adyen Payment Gateway, for example. We integrate that to Infor HMS. We don't store a single credit card in the software. And again, legacy platforms. I've been in the software industry a long time. We stored credit cards in databases on premise, which weren't exactly secure. Today, the hotels are all tokenized. So there's virtually no chance of that credit card being compromised, because even our software doesn't hold it, and that's tokenized by a professional banking organization. So again, those I think those challenges can be overcome. And again, integration pieces. Within the hospitality sector, there's a lot of different kind of integrations. We use the latest technologies. I won't profess to know the names. Siemens says I'm a technologist. I am, but I don't know a lot of the technical terms. I'm a hotelier at heart. I'm an ex-hotelier. What I know is when we connect two platforms together, we've got APIs that allow hotels, Siemens mentioned the reservation systems, to make sure that those online bookings go straight into the hotel software, so their staff aren't having to spend time doing that. And again, it's all about costs that the hotel's saving by having those integrations. And one of our core ethos about what we do is making sure we deliver as many more and new integrated pieces, whether it's a reservations, point of sale, door locking system, building management system. We bring those to the hotels. Kiosks, for example, as Seema mentioned there, again, is something that's quite popular in hotels today, for that contactless check-in piece. And it's what we can deliver to the hotels to help them out. And that's what we're there for, is we're there to help the hotel in delivering those those pieces of technology to make the hotel's life better.
And I also think I also recall that you mentioned, right, sometimes it's not just one solutions provider, sometimes it's many coming on board. And I like how you mentioned your other partners as well coming on board to form this, and it's part of the experiment of moving into digitalization and trying to move out of the usual legacy systems that many of the tourism sector has had, right, for many years.
Yes. I mean, we provide software solutions for front desk, meetings management, revenue management, financial management, but we don't do a door locking system. We don't do channel management. We don't have a point of sale in this region yet. So we partner with other companies, and we make sure we are integrated with those other partners, and we work very closely with them.
So that I suppose also helps with the whole integration part as well, because it is this whole, I guess, with anything as a service, as we know of the term, it does link up a lot more facets of it, right? It's not just the usual, a particular product, right? It interweaves into many of the business units and the departments and the teams as well. And when the organizations, like, in this case, Siemens team, they're looking at solving problems. Sometimes it's not a singular solution, right? Sometimes it needs multiple ways of looking at things or solving that problem. And that's how solutions like providers like you guys can actually come in and say, hey, here's what we can do. Here's what maybe we can explore doing together. And, if budget is a concern, and then let's, look again and see what can be done, right? That's what I'm hearing from you.
Yes.
Xiao, how is it like, in your experience? And also, in the meantime, I'm seeing questions coming in the Q&A. So for the audience, please start populating questions. Right after this, we'll start hearing from our audience as well. Yeah, Xiao, so, back to you on, we've heard and also from Craig and Simin, those were barriers that they face, or concerns that they face as they started their case studies or pilots? What about, from your point of view, or from the many attractions that you're working with? Was it also issues on integration, on cost? What were some of the common feedbacks that you're hearing as well?
Definitely, I think as Ximing actually mentioned, actually they focus a lot on the core system, which is the hotel management system. So I think the same part goes to the attraction sector as well. So they have to really understand what is their core system that they have to make things work. And then as Craig actually mentioned, that the cost efficiency actually also comes with the cost saving parts after you're implementing the thing in the right way. So it's not how much you spend, but how much you have saved in the long term. That's really that make things that works in the long term. Yeah, and in the attraction perspective, I think the core system identification and the identifying the business needs and also the potential solution that they could adopt is the very essential or very important first step for the stakeholders to understand what they need. And then from a cost efficiency perspective, they can evaluate the ROI and also the main KPI and also the objective that they want to really achieve by end of the day. That's going to really make the decision process much easier. And definitely, like as mentioned by many of the panelists and also by the responses, that integration cost is the number one concern. As Craig mentioned, actually, like for the experienced solution architect or solution providers, we actually have worked with multiple solutions. And we also know what will work and what will not work. And in that way, I think finding the right partner may be a way to save more costs in terms of communication and in terms of integration. And definitely integration is one of the most important and most difficult tasks in terms of the implementing XaaS or XaaS solutions. And I think it's a like long-term learning process. I think like by really like trying the whole process and understanding the process will be a very important steps for all those like stakeholders who may not be very familiar with the whole like XaaS and XaaS solution process. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so let's get to the Q&A. I think one of the questions that our audience have asked, one of the attendees have asked is, what were some key factors that contribute to getting senior management on board? So anyone? Simin, you want to take this?
Yeah, probably. I think I've mentioned firstly to really identify the gaps in your organization, right? That is probably the basis or the foundation of where this conversation is going to start. For us, just in our context, apart from the 3 problem statements that I shared earlier, we also noticed that our legacy system was not serving us very well in terms of, the time that's taken in the system is slightly slower. And there are functions that we know of other hotels being capable of performing, and our system is lacking of that due to age. So that is a very good conversation starting point with your owners or your management that, hey, look, we are slightly behind. Or for companies that do not wish to be behind the program or or in terms of advancement, it is then looking at what are the best case in practice in the market, sort of to show them this is where we can capitalize the system. If we are looking to grow the organization, and in my context, we are not just looking at 1 property, but we are looking at 7 property. So then it makes sense for this investment to take place. Owners would also like to see numbers And as I shared earlier, the numbers that we really showed was the productivity and efficiency by man-hour savings. And that multiplied by a certain number of properties that you are looking at will turn into a more convincing case study or more convincing proposition for you to sort of justify to management for the change or to adopt these systems. And it doesn't have to be a hotel management system per se. It can be other SaaS services. So I previously shared how we also adopted a digital concierge as well as AI chatbot. And previously during the pandemic, we also had a facility booking platform that was also hosted by a cloud system. The cost was not high at all. So that was also a good starting point, just to experiment a little if you need that foreplay. Yeah.
Craig and Xiao, anything to add on when it comes to convincing?
Look, I was going to say this. I've said it already. Is listen to other people in the industry that have gone through these challenges. We are very fortunate that so many of our clients are willing to advocate for what we do, and we're very fortunate that they are available to other potential hotels when they're umming and ahhing over whether they should deploy. I can refer to another hotel that's already gone through that whole same project, and they will happily sit there and tell them, this went absolutely fantastically. Here's the pitfall. Watch out for that. No software installation is perfect. But it's a case of, if you are expecting and you are ready when there's always an obstacle that crops up, how to get over that obstacle. And that's, again, is a lot of reasons why people are hesitant into moving to new platforms, is what if it goes wrong? Listen to the stories of those people that have got it right. What did they do right? What would they do better next time?
To me, I'm thinking more from two perspectives. One is from top down, or the other from bottom up. And sometimes from organization perspective, those operation people will be the ones who understand what's going wrong and what's going right. So I think for the senior managers, they should understand more from the bottom up point of view, what's going right and what's going wrong. And then, but from a very top-down approach, the senior managers will understand on the financial side what's causing all the headaches or all these costs in terms of the human resource and other things. And then they should be the one who's actually driving the project. So I think for a successful project, it will go from a senior management perspective to understand from a bottom operation point of view, as well as from the organization's ROI's perspective. Then they will be the ones who's leading the project. And that's very likely to be a successful project, end of the day. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I love all the suggestions. So Simin's one is definitely, show them the numbers, right? That's what senior management wants to see. Not just the ROI on it, but also the cost savings, right? The potential and possibilities of cost savings. And Xiao also mentioned, I think that's also very interesting thoughts on gathering internal feedback, right? If the ground operations team needs such a solution, it becomes a business need. And of course, Craig mentioning that look out for other people's proof of concept, right? And show it to the business owners. Like, hey, this particular company, right, done it. So we should be in the whole race as well and make changes, right? I love that. Okay, and the questions are still coming in. So I'm going to combine two questions. One of it is asking about how do we balance out trying innovative solutions versus finding short-term solutions? Because, as a business, especially in the tourism sector, everything is fast-paced. There's so much challenges post-pandemic. So how do you balance R&D, innovation, versus a short-term solution? This is quite similar from another attendee that's asking, what's the lowest hanging fruit? I think, people also want to look at, do you have a short project that we can pilot? What's the lowest hanging fruit when it comes to ideating for anything as a service project? Yeah, so what are your thoughts on that?
Maybe I will begin with the conversation. I think in terms of lowest hanging fruits, it really depends on your organization needs. So I can't really, vouch for that, or if I have a winning solution for that. But one of the beauty of a XaaS project is, for example, if you already have a core system like ours, which is the property management system, certain functions can be, or modules can be add-ons on a subscription mode, right? So we have tried it out before as well, with having it. Some of the subscription models allow you to have it for 1 month, and some of them allow you to have it for a year. And you can experiment in that sense if it caters to your needs on a short-term basis. And if you feel like that works for you, then you can extend it. So XaaS model has flexibility, and it allows an organization to be agile to a certain point. And this is unlike a legacy system, because you have already invested in the server, the hardware. It's very difficult for you to pull the plug and say, no, I'm not using this. I'm no longer using this. So I guess when it comes to the balance between the innovation, these solutions, as well as whether is it a short-term solution, obviously this is for the organization to determine, but XaaS allows you to have that flexibility to do so. Yeah.
Craig and Xiao, any thoughts on this? I mean, it also makes sense, right? Because technology is supposed to make things more agile. And Craig, you mentioned it so many times, the possibilities of implementing new solutions whenever we face with different challenges. So what are some of your thoughts? Or advice, or rather, right, to the tourism sector that are just facing a bit of that? How should we begin? Is it going to take a year of my time, or how do we do this?
How should begin is easy. Is list out your problems. Put down on a piece of paper what your challenges are in your current business. Work from there. And so many hotels do that, but so many hotels don't. We get so many phone calls. We need a new cloud system. Why? Oh, well, we've been told to buy cloud. Think about what the problem is you're trying to solve. And then vendors like us, vendors like XaaS, can help in that market space. If we know what your key problem is, we can help. And that's really the starting point. What is it you're trying to achieve in the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? Where do you see your business in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? And then we can sit down, have those conversations and say, here's how we can help. And that's really it with a good technology vendor, I think. We'll bring in then the specialist to explain, here's how this fits, here's how this fits. And we have a lot of hotels that we will have those conversations, and then there are other parts of the conversation that the hotel didn't think of as a problem at the time, and as part of that process that goes on, they will suddenly realize they actually do have other problems that they need to solve. And Seamin said it there. It's a case of we can then bring in those extra pieces of technology. The market's changing so vast. 10 years ago nobody wanted a kiosk. Today most hotels are looking at that mobile check-in perspective. So the problem didn't exist 10 years ago because the guest didn't want it. The problem exists today because the guest is demanding it.
I totally agree with Craig. Yeah, so he actually mentioned about understand your current, your real problem. What is the problem that's actually lying here? So from my perspective, I think there are quite a number of actions that the industries or the stakeholders can take. First of all, there are certain way of, they call POC, like proof of concept. I think it depends on the nature of the project. If some project can be very new or innovative, where even you yourself have researched a lot and find there's no such solution. And the other way is, the other kind of problem is a common problem, that because you are in the industry, so everyone else are facing similar issues and there are ready solutions out there. So I think the first question is more on the first kind of solution. How are we going to invest on this kind of very innovative? For instance, ChatGPT just come out, and then everyone wants to create a ChatGPT application. And then how can we do that? But there's not so many resources out there that you can actually find. But indeed, it's feasible to work out a solution in a POC, like proof of concept point of view and to convince your stakeholders that, okay, this is the right way to go, and it can be so much cost saving and so much more beneficial to the organization, then why don't we actually work out a bigger scope? Yeah, so I think POC may be a way to work out, and then or else like actually really do more research on your own to ensure that the second kind of questions or the problems is already been addressed, so that you can actually focus along the more innovative parts. Yeah. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think that's also about the time that we have, but I would just like to take one last question on, from one of the attendees. What are some of the differences of pre, during, and post-pandemic when it comes to end user adoption? And I think this is probably a worry as well, because we also heard Simin mention, during the pandemic, it was a challenge, and it also gave, a time for your team to really spend the time. But post-pandemic, how do you think are some of the changes when it comes to end user adoption?
I think my first question that I spoke with Craig was, would this technology be a white elephant? Because if these mobile tablets are not going to move, I'm not going to have them in the hotel. I might have repeated that very often in our conversation. But now that we are more than one year in, I would say that the end user adoption has not lowered, but if not, it has increased. I would also be upfront to share that in terms of our consumers using the pre-registration function, I've shared earlier on candidly that it has actually decreased because the appeal is no longer as strong as it was during pandemic, when people were trying to minimize this contact with front office or with any of the hotel associates. But with the housekeeping mobile application, as well as reservations and all other department functions, it has already been integrated in our workflow. So it is part and parcel for their job. Once they're used to it, it's a routine, and therefore the adoption rate will be there. However, if there are resistance and we stop sort of promoting it or pushing it, I think that's where you would see technology being underutilized. Yeah. That being said, some of the problem statements that we have identified in the earlier stage of planning remains valid today, right? We are still adopting or moving towards a full adoption of a hybrid format for a lot of organizations. In Singapore's context, there are even talks of whether 4-day work week is feasible, right? A lot of hotels are moving into cluster or regional management, and therefore management needs to have transparency of hotel statistics, performance, and data. And likewise, manpower crunches is just an everyday issue. My point being that the problem statements are still present, and therefore the need to digitalize or the digitalization journey does not end here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Craig, yourself and Xiao.
I was going to add to, sorry, Sharon.
Well, I was trying to talk from an attraction perspective. Basically, for all the travelers, especially those who come to travel destinations or attractions, they are getting more digital savvy. That's actually a fact that you cannot deny. And then you have to really make a digital savvy, a digital solution that will be really cater for this digital savvy travelers. So I think for end user adoption, definitely the ease to use, and also we actually show like omni-channel is a very important two of the very important keywords that we actually have to make it work. For instance, for a Chinese traveler, you cannot expect them to download a new app to actually experience it. So it's not the way that the end customers are not adopting the solution, but rather they actually have already evolved into a higher or a more emerging or more engaging way of working with the digital solutions. So I think we have to adapt to all the behavioral change, especially to those travelers who are more digital savvy. And And actually, indeed, all the age group are getting more digital savvy. Indeed, for instance, the Chinese traveler who are in their 60s or 70s or even 80s, they are actually using the WeChat mini program crazily. And then you cannot imagine that how this can happen where they were not born as a digital savvy adult, but now everyone is using solutions so digitally engaged. So we have to work out solutions to cater for all this different kind of user groups. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you, Xiao. Craig, yourself?
Yep. Look, Seema mentioned earlier, within her team, they have a champion of the systems. So for your internal people that are using the software, have a champion within the hotel who understands how the system operates and can really drive that forward within the rest of the team. Also, it's one thing we haven't spoken about is that the team around you to supporting the platform. It's all very well having a software as a service, but if you take a system that has no support behind it, when something goes wrong or you need to learn more, there's no background to it. Something we're providing to all our clients now is a completely onboarded user training program, so that there's little tiny 30-minute videos. So a new member of staff comes on board, they can spend a couple of hours going through how this system actually works, rather than just walking to the hotel saying, oh, there's the computer, go and see if you can figure it out yourself. So we're bringing on these learning management systems so that there are user interactions. And again, go back to see what Seemin said about the guest check-in process. Again, we've seen a similar pattern with some other hotels where during COVID, nobody wanted to touch front desk, nobody wanted to go near another staff member, and so the mobile check-in was a very key component. We've seen that drop off a little bit. I think we're seeing it picking back up again at the moment because people are suddenly realizing it actually speeds up their check-in. But again, it's just making it intuitive. It's so long as it's easy for the guest to click that link. It's Xiao said, don't use an app. We use web apps. So rather than actually forcing a guest to download a specific hotel app, it opens in a web browser. So they can check in on their mobile at the airport. They can check in the cab on the way to the hotel. So long as it's easy for the guest will start to use it. As Xiao said, 60-year-olds now are picking up iPhones and using them, and it's becoming part and parcel.
I think all three of you really mentioned the different possibilities, and that's the beauty of what tech can bring. Right? I think that's why it started with software as a solutions to today we're talking about anything as a service, right? There's just so many possibilities that it can shape, and I'm really glad to be listening to you guys and hearing from all your case studies today. I'm sure our audience have also benefited greatly from this sharing as well. And hopefully, if there are more questions, they can also reach back to you guys, whether is it online or back to STB Tcube, all these questions, and we can definitely bring more discussions, to in person or even more virtual sessions like this. Yeah. So if they would like to, if any one of you listeners, the attendees, would like to connect with Craig and Xiao to explore solutions, please also reach out to us. I think Sharon has already shared the email, and we will be happy to facilitate. As I mentioned, Tcube is meant to have this community of learning and all of us to explore digital transformation together. So thank you so much, to Xiao, Craig, Simin for your time today. And thank you to all the attendees as well. I would like to get everybody just to pause and finish feedback before you leave as well, so that we can also know how we can understand problems that the ground faces, so that we can shape content to be better as well for the community. So please spend time to just let us know, let us hear your feedback. And this will also help to shape and steer the future Tcube events and activities as well. Yep. So thank you once again, Craig and Xiao and Simin. And looking forward to hearing more of the possibilities and case studies that you guys are creating.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Please help to fill in the feedback and see you at the next Tcube event. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you all so much. I think